Okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome
Happy
to our
Friday.
LinkedIn Live. We got Jane and Ian here today. Very excited for this Thanksgiving weekend edition. We're going to talk about doing less to do more, but also a little bit of a different focus today of where doing the things that matter most can be what gets you more. And so it's not about doing all the opportunities, but the ones that really matter. I'm going to get the chance to introduce Ian a little bit here. I'm going to give the chance to you to do it properly afterwards, Ian. I'm going to give it from my point of view of getting to work with you at North Forge a little bit initially when you came in as the director there. And then after where we were able to continue just staying in touch and working on how we're going to build this ecosystem in Manitoba around the technology and startups and getting some funding back into the city.
Mm.
And we talked about it in the green room and the backstage before this, where I still remember the map you shared initially that showed all the provinces and the blue dots with the size of investment dollars that came into each province over, I think it was the last 6 months or something. And every dot was visible except for ours, which was like a pin. 500K. And your mission's been, I won't say it on your behalf, but your mission's been awesome. I've been following it for a while and really love what you've been doing. But seeing you take a hard problem like that and raising money, period, is already tough. But then raising money in a place to use it in a place that isn't getting a lot of attention already makes it extra hard. And so to see you work through, like, that's a challenging problem, but it's a problem worth solving. I really love just seeing you take the challenge head on to see what you can do with it. And I'm excited to talk about a few of the big wins you've had this last little while. But I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about how you've taken the approach of doing those critical few things that really make the biggest impact.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. No, I'm in a public space here. But no, thanks for having me on, you too. Really appreciate it, and it's fun to have an opportunity to share a little bit more about what we're doing with Trillick Ventures and how it's impacting the community, the startup community within Manitoba. I guess I'll go into it a little bit. Up in Manitoba, my wife and I both grew up here. Big, strong ties to Manitoba. We lived away for 20 years, predominantly in Toronto for that time, and then spent a couple of years in Calgary before moving back and choosing to move back with our young family, and worked in this space for a while now. And when we moved back to Manitoba, it just was really obvious very quickly on how many founders are building here in the province and how many brilliant founders we have building. You know, there's a certain grit and tenacity and frugality that comes with a Manitoban founder, and that is unique compared to other places where you can build companies. And I kept hearing the same story where they were having a really hard time raising capital. And when you can't raise capital in your own backyard first, it's a huge red flag to larger VCs who you know typically will come to later on down your journey. But if you can't, but if you come there, if you try and go there first, it's like, well, why couldn't you raise the first little bit of capital to get you where you needed to go initially from folks in your backyard? And it's just really because we didn't have the conduit. Manitobans are very giving and very supportive, and we're really supportive of our own, but we just didn't have a really good conduit for founders to attract capital within Manitoba. So that's the problem that I signed up to solve, is really helping those founders get their first believers to back them here so that they don't have to leave. Because the challenge with going and raising money out of province is you often relocate out of province. And now deciding that Manitoba is going to be home for us and our family, we want to do the most that we possibly can to help grow and support it. And of course, build our community around us. And so we want to make sure that the best of the best stay. And we don't have that drain of our leaders, of our business leaders out from the province. The nice thing is that many do come back, but many leave and they don't come back. And so how can we create an environment where it's attractive for them to build here? Because we have so many good things going for us in Manitoba. We've got, you know, terrific talent that's available here, great cost of living. So your dollars get stretched so much farther, particularly when you're building a startup, when every dollar counts. It's just, there's so many things going for us here, and we got to take advantage of our strengths. And so that's what we're working to do.
Amazing. And I know, like, we were talking before, Jane and I spent some time together when I worked at Bold, and she was helping us gear up
Yeah.
our leadership teams. And I'll let you maybe speak to it a bit, Jane, but I know personally I've found so many great people here in Manitoba that would often get under recognized outside of Manitoba. So their talent would be like, oh, they're, you know, that's not top talent. We get top talent from this other place. And being able to see it firsthand and living it, I just knew we got so many great people right here. And so seeing someone pay attention to it at that kind of level has been really interesting too.
It's interesting too, the idea, like, I work so much from a leadership and culture perspective in organizations, and I'm often talking to them about how, we want to create an environment where employees keep looking for opportunities inside the company they're already working for, that they're not looking for opportunities outside, very similarly to this sort of tech ecosystem of not having to look elsewhere as well. And there's a lot of research that shows from a company standpoint that your next best employee is often somebody who already works for your organization, maybe just in a slightly different role with a bit more investment. And, very true of like the next Manitoba success story, the next, big win, those are going to be folks that are already here that we need to be investing in.
Yeah, well, we have the foundations to build a really cool flywheel, a really great flywheel that other provinces have benefited from, like Ottawa benefited with the Shopify effect, right? Calgary is now benefiting massively from their boom. And it only takes a few wins, right? Like you both worked at Bold, right? So that Bold is a perfect example of like one of those first tech businesses that really started to really take off in Manitoba, and where a lot of folks like yourselves get to be a part of that scale up, where you learn what it takes to be a part of a scale up. And it's often those employees like yourselves who have both now founded companies who go out and build your own thing or become the entrepreneurs that are looking for capital to back. And so that becomes a flywheel. So it's the investors who invest in those companies who get great returns and then recycle that capital back into the ecosystem. But it is also the talent side, where the talent who are a part of that growth see what it takes and then come up with their own idea that they want to go and take forward. And then they go spin off and found their own company. That's that flywheel effect. And we have like the foundations of all of that here in Manitoba. And then we're just at this like launch off point where it can really turn into something big.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Calgary, because I went, I think it was just before you started really, really pushing towards this fund. And it was Scale Up Week. And I remember going there and listening to the conversation they were having. And it sounded like they truly were just about, it was like the coffee with Jane, where she told me she was 1 year ahead of where I was and gave me like the little minefield map of what to look out for that was coming my way.
Mm-hmm.
But they were 10 years ahead, and they had finally put together all the pieces for their startup ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And now they were on to solving the next problem of, okay, the startups are well-funded, supported, there's expertise, there's consultancies, there's everything you might need to get off the ground, but they're trying to solve the next level. And it's really exciting to see us taking these steps in Manitoba to get that startup system going, because that's what you need. You can't skip it to go to scale up. And that's really where you get tons of benefit when those companies can start scaling within the province, is when the province really feels the win. And with all the talent we have, especially, it's just, it seems like a no-brainer. And it's really exciting to see someone, do it maybe their own way instead of the traditional way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have great examples, right? You don't have to recreate the wheel. You can see what's worked other places and then just implement it based on our own circumstances that we have available to us. Like Saskatchewan is quite a bit ahead of where Manitoba is when it comes to this startup community. And 6 years ago, they had their first VC fund start, which was the Connexus Venture Capital Fund, which acted as a terrific catalyst to invest and launch a whole bunch of startups that otherwise wouldn't have existed. And you've been able to see them evolve and see Saskatchewan really, show up on that map significantly. They've had now terrific exits. They've had huge companies that have been built there. And so we're a few years behind technically from getting our first fund. We just launched this in February now, but we're going to catch up really quickly because we're building with a ton of momentum. Again, we're betting on terrific talent that exists here and I think is better than anywhere else in the nation. So we're going to see a lot of things happen quickly, and we're going to see Manitoba hopefully leapfrog a little bit here and leapfrog everybody else.
I saw the last map that came out and we had a much bigger bubble than the little pin we had the first time. So
yeah, that was pretty cool to see.
Exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting to see both the volume and the amount. So a lot of that dollar amount was attributed to Conquest Planning, who had a terrific Series B raise where they raised $110 million. So they definitely took the lion's share out of that 125. But we had 6 deals on the table in that half of the year, which otherwise we would normally have one. So Trillick led 3 of those rounds, which we were really proud to do. And Noah Polanski, who's one of our partners, his company Tave was another one of those who announced his large Series A, 14.4 million USD, I think it was. And so like another great example, Conquest, Tave, Payworks. These are great examples of companies that have been startup scale up and they're thriving here in the province and they have no shortage of talent. That's often the argument. It's like, why do you want tech startups to be here? Because we're not in San Francisco. We're not at Toronto. No, we have terrific institutions. We have brilliant people who can figure things out, and there's no challenge accessing information anymore. You don't have to be a startup in Silicon Valley. You don't have to be in Waterloo, where all, that engineering school is so well known. You can be anywhere, and there's talent everywhere. But again, the advantages of being in a place like Manitoba significantly outweigh any disadvantage, in my opinion, because we have access to everything at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the really interesting thing is when you start looking at least what I've found or talking with founders here in Manitoba versus other, or even people looking to work at startups. So not even founders, just the employees who want to join in and participate and be leaders and grow their skills. They're coming at it not from a point of view of like they are the best thing where they know everything. It's a pretty humble group who's willing to like figure things out and learn what they need to learn and are willing to admit when like, hey, I need a hand. I don't know this. Who do I know who does? And that's where you're seeing a lot more of that, like a community-driven approach is really working here. And it's been great to see all the different kind of groups starting to come together to see how we can support in a group effort.
Yeah, and like I said, like the Manitoba founders are built a little bit different, right? Like they're resourceful. They've got grit. They're frugal, which is also great when you know that they're really strong stewards of the capital that's being invested in them. And when you're investing in early stage companies, those are the qualities you want in people. You're investing in people. You're investing in the teams and the founders' ability to recruit a terrific team around them. Because, an idea is not worth more than the piece of paper it's written on. It truly is the execution. And so it's the founders in those early teams that execute on their ideas. And it's those collective values that they share that are what drive a business forward. And that's why I think we have a real edge in Manitoba.
Okay, we'll maybe come back to the fun in Manitoba because I think we could probably all talk about how much we love Manitoba for a while, but not to be too big. We know there's things that need work as well, so don't get us wrong.
100%.
There's lots of opportunity.
We're getting there though.
But I like that we're doing something about it, and I think we have the right people making those moves. Given that you work with many founders, Iain, some that will get successful funding from your fund, and some that might not or that want to one day. In the spirit of like trying to help them do less to get more, where would your recommendation be to people who are looking to start businesses or in the middle of that messy startup phase to focus their efforts to get to where they want to go? Where are some of the pitfalls you might see or some of the things that you would just give as advice to them who are going through this right now?
Yeah, I think it's like everything. Whenever you speak to someone, you got to understand who you're speaking to and what motivates them. So if you're looking for customers, you have to know your customer inside and out. You truly have to fall in love with the customer, right? You can't fall in love with your solution that you're trying to impose upon your customer. So it's a lot of that comes to the early stage of validation, going through that customer validation, making sure that there is demand for what it is that you're creating for the world, and making sure that you're listening and you're taking notes, because again, startups typically pivot 3 times before they actually find product market fit. That only comes if you have your ears open and if you're listening to your customer and you fall in love with the problem that they're experiencing, not what you think that right solution is. So that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of interviews. It takes a lot of like in the trench work with the people that you're trying to serve. And you got to love those folks who you're trying to serve. That's massive. So that's really understanding your customer. And then when you go and if you do have a venture scalable business, then you will be looking for capital. Most businesses that do get started are not venture scalable businesses. So that you should understand what it takes in order to go that way, because it may not make sense and it may be a huge waste of time, and it may distract you from going and really serving your customer and building a really great business. The majority of companies, your best source of funding is revenue, where you need to go out, talk to customers, you need to sign people up, you need to get them to pay for whatever it is that you're building them. And again, some of the most resourceful founders do that, even if they have a venture scalable business. But if you don't have a venture scalable business, that's what you got to be doing. You got to go the revenue route. But if you do have a company that makes sense to raise multiple rounds of equity financing and go on that trajectory that requires venture capital, then you need to understand who you're talking to when you're also selling your company and what their motivations are. For me, as a fund manager, my responsibility is to my investors, my limited partners who give, along with myself, put the capital forward to invest in these companies, and we have to answer to them. So we have to structure a portfolio portfolio that provides entry points and exit points. And so you have to understand what that journey of the company that you're building, how that fits within the portfolio of that of that fund. And often that has to do with size and scope, what their specialty is, for instance, or what their time horizon is also. Like if they're right at the very beginning of the fund, which typically has a lifespan of 10 to 12 years, then you have a longer time frame to build your business and exit. But if you're coming in at year 5 of a 10-year fund, you're going to have to figure out a way to exit within 3 years if they're going to be the right investor for you. So there's just a lot of work when it comes to knowing who you're talking to. And I think when you talk about doing less, you don't want to do a whole bunch of busy work that doesn't make sense. So the more you can understand about the people that you're speaking to, the less work you end up having to do because you're focused in the right spaces.
And you and I have talked about this a lot too. When you said that, Ian, it instantly made me think of some of the conversations we've had of in your leadership training you do, like understanding at the employee level or the leader level what's important to each person. We've talked about like doing less to do more. It's so universal, that understand point of whoever you are serving ultimately. Like the more you understand them, the less work you actually have to do because you don't have to be doing so many things to see what sticks. You just know what will ahead of time. I don't know if you've seen the same thing, Jane, when you go into like leadership groups or trying to customize, like how do you get the most from your team? It's usually not like a do everything approach. It's usually a much more fine-tuned approach to it.
Your employees, to a certain extent, are your customers, similarly to a startup, right? Like, a lot of organizations talk about putting their customers first. I really believe in putting your employees first. Your employees can put your customers first. But they're your first and most important customer. And so like understanding who they are, what matters to them, I think we see that a lot in the discussions around remote work, hybrid work, these types of things, like what actually works for people. And I don't care whether people work remotely or in person or whatever, but you have to have a philosophy and a real reason behind it. And it has to make sense for your customers, for your team, in order for them to get on board with it. So yeah, absolutely. I see that sort of individualized approach in the same way.
I fully agree. And I think that, also as a leader, you need to be a lighthouse instead of a tugboat. You're not pulling people. You're really, the beacon of attracting them to you. And then when you're a leader of an organization, like a founder, for instance, your biggest value is not the amount of hours that you can work and the amount that you can throw on your own back. It's the team that you can build around you. And so you need to make room for the visions of the folks that you're bringing aboard, that they can achieve their vision within your vision for the company and for what you're trying to do, because that's integral, right? In order to get the best people.
That's one of those things that we really notice too, is this idea that we think like we have to be doing it all as a founder or as a leader. Not recognizing that we could be better leveraging our team and leveraging those strengths and those visions that the folks on the team have. And, that leadership really is like an exercise in letting go. And I would imagine that's true for startups as well, as it's an exercise in learning to let go and learning to delegate and recognizing that the most impact you can possibly have is by leveraging your team. Like you can only do so much on your own. And so investing in your team is one of the most important things you can do to get better and bigger results.
And I think the lighthouse analogy is so great.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
a good
love
one.
it so much because it is that founder energy. Like that is, we've talked about this, like your business results are almost always, especially when you're small, in that early 1 to 10 team, 1 to 20 even, the founder energy is almost exactly equal to the business success. If the founder's doing well and
Totally.
their life is good and they have what they need to be well as a person, then their business is usually also well. But if they sacrifice too much, they put up too much on their own back, they try to do everything themselves, they don't build the team, they try to just build everything themselves, then you usually find the ones that are stuck, that are suffering, that are like trying to find that next little thing to get them through. And that's where the struggle happens, right? That's where we hear about so much in entrepreneurial talking points, is that struggle. But it's often because people see entrepreneurship as, I now need to do everything, versus I am the most excited about this idea and I'm the one who will make it happen by collecting the people who like see it the way I see it and let them participate in building the vision and build it. It won't be exactly the way the founder sees it, but it'll be in that direction with people who will actually get it there. And I think that's such an important piece that I've been finding lots and lots even now. And I thought maybe we were a little further along in getting rid of this thought that entrepreneurship was a one-person show, but we're not even close. I think it's still so prevalent that people think that they need to do everything themselves. It doesn't count. It's just cheated the system if they included too many others to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I love,
Yeah.
again, Ian, like part of the reason I wanted you on this was I went to one of your sessions you had for people seeking funding. And a couple of things you said just really stood out as like, that's not something you typically hear from someone in private equity, right? Like you give people advice on when not to take funding, just period. Like don't, even if someone offered it to you, you don't want to do it. And I think things like that are what makes it different to me, is having these principles or these values that, done a certain way, we can get a higher rate of success for people than just making 10 bets and hope a couple pay off.
Yeah, totally.
The other piece, just quickly on that same thing, was the not venture. I had to laugh a little bit when you said they have to go do the revenue thing instead. And it's so true that that's like an actual thought that happens in this conversation of funding is seen as this, like, if I get funding, then I have a business, then I have a startup, then I have a whatever. And it's almost
people
like,
celebrate the rounds of funding like
totally.
It's not something to celebrate. You should be celebrating the new wins of the new customers that you sign on. A new financing round is a means to an end, right? Like it's a way to bring capital into a business so that you have a lever that is existing, that's working, that you can now pull and achieve more. You put $1 in here, it pumps out. Like that is the reason for capital. It's not the thing to celebrate. And too often it is celebrated in startup culture when the fundamentals aren't there. But in order to get funding, the fundamentals need to be there. And that's how we know that, okay, this machine is working. We're going to put a dollar in, 5 is going to come out. And that's because they started looking at those early signals of revenue. And you obviously, you get more tuned in, and the more you put in, ideally that output even gets even greater with scale. Jordan, before I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned there was about like well-roundedness also of the founder, which it was interesting. We've talked about this many times. Every time that we've got together, we've talked about it. And I was just having lunch prior here with a gentleman who is part of EO, and EO is a great example. And yesterday I was with a few folks from YPO, and that's another great organization that focuses on this type of thing, which is the well-roundedness of the owner of a business or the founder of a business. And I think we don't talk about this stuff enough, where like if some area of your life is really struggling, then inevitably your business is going to suffer, right? And so what you put out the other day, which we talked about, which is that like circle of life, it's all of the wheel of life, which is all the components that make up excellence in your business or in your life. It has to do, it comes back down to your personal life too, because if your personal life is struggling, your business is going to absolutely suffer. So being okay, and those organizations are really great at creating open spaces for people to talk about not just their business health, but their personal health. And because they're so intertwined, doing the founder journey is bloody. Like you get doors slammed in your face all the time. Like I'm fundraising for this fund still, and I get doors slammed in my face all the time. And it's tough, right? Like it's a really interesting parallel between raising a fund and founding a company. Like there's a lot of comparables. It's very similar, but you have to have the ability to get up and do it again. And that's that resourcefulness, that grit that you look for in founders. But so often it's not going to work if they struggle in other areas of their life, or it only will work for so long. And so creating those spaces where people can talk about it, and that's super important, and adds so much value.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be my next question for you, Ian, is like in the work that you're doing when you're assessing startups, when you're assessing founders, like, are you looking at that well-roundedness, or is that like a direction that we're looking at more than we maybe used to? Because I don't think 10 years ago we were having that same discussion that we're now having around like sustainability and well-being and health of the people that are starting these businesses.
Yeah, totally. Like look at the founders who we've invested in. They're all excellent people, first and foremost. And that matters so much to me and to our investors, because it'll matter at the end of the day, because they're going to attract the best people to work alongside them and work on this shared vision of what they're building. So it totally goes into the equation. Probably I weight it way more than most, just because of just being in the business coaching world for as long as I have, and been a part of this side of it, and seeing the benefits when you are well-rounded, when you do take care of your physical and mental health, just how that translates into success. I know how important it is. And so it's something that we absolutely look for, and also try and help in any way that we can for people who are not investing in. It's just it's an important sort of cautionary tale to help people with, to know that they can't just throw themselves in a business all day, every day, and expect that they're never going to burn out, because that's just it's not possible.
I like how all three of us had the exact same smile, because we've all 100% been there and know exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And we had a really good conversation with Amanda Busey a couple weeks ago. And this reminds me of her talking about how she's like, I'm going to be here in 10 or 15 years, no matter what. I'm not 100% sure whether my business will be here in 10 or 15 years. Like, hopefully it will.
hmm
But like, I don't know what's going to happen. She's like, so like, I have to take care of me because I'm still here for sure. And, I need to be okay whether the business is there or not.
Totally.
Yeah. 100%.
I just realized what time it was. I can't even believe it was 30 minutes already. We could go, I have so many more things to talk about. Maybe we'll have to do a round two sometime, Ian, maybe a series B. Hey, that will be
For sure.
that.
There we go. Yeah,
We usually have to leave everyone with just like one thing they could do this week to try to do a little less to get more of what they want. For me, I'll leave the life wheel in the comments of this show afterwards. It's again, thanks to Ian for you sent me one, which was more on the life side. And it just prompted me to try to make one that was a balance of both if someone wanted to kind of just get it all on one piece of paper. So I'll share it below. That'll be my action for the week. Fill it out. It's super simple. And it just gives you a bird's eye view of which area of life business do you need to give that focus to. Put that one fire out. If you listen to any of my stuff, I'm big on one thing at a time. So it helps me just to prioritize this week, this month. Where's my focus? Other stuff will happen, but what's the one thing that needs to get the focus and energy?
Maybe pick up, Ian, on your analogy around the leader being like a lighthouse for their team, and sort of maybe encourage leaders, whether you are, a startup founder or whether you're leading any kind of team, to think about what that looks like for you, and maybe like what are your leadership values and where do you want to lead from, and what is that energy that you want to bring to your team, and what does it look like even when things aren't going well, to show up with that like authentic energy that can maybe get your team back to where they need to be, and how do you want to show up? So that'll maybe be my little takeaway for this week.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I'm on the spot here. I'll give one too. I think it's, we're going to have a lot of founders listening to this. So go talk to 3 customers in the first 2 days of next week, and really get to know what it is that they like about what you're doing and what they don't like about what they're doing, and then take good notes and apply the feedback, because you need to be in the trenches. You can't be removed.
I love it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Talking to customers, whether they're employees or customers, just
Yes.
never stop. Never stop.
Feedback. Yep.
Never stop getting that feedback. Yeah.
Totally.
Great.
Well, thanks so much
Thanks for having me on, you
for
guys.
taking the time.
Thanks, Ian.
It's fantastic having you. And like I said,
My
we'll
pleasure.
maybe look into another one where we can ask the rest of these questions. But have a good Thanksgiving weekend, both of you. And
Sounds good.
we'll
Yeah.
talk soon.
Sounds
Have a
great.
great long weekend.
Take
Bye.
care.
See you, everybody.